Hello everybody, thank you very much for tuning in to watch this very special presentation as I go through some of these classic Cry Havoc magazines which we found on Miracuri, Japan, as we're located here in the Temple of the East. And this sale came up the other day and I said to Paul, we need to grab this because we've got all these hybrid cards in there, and of course it's just that nostalgic feeling of going through the old books again and magazines, which I did have many years ago, but sadly sold before I moved to Japan, so some other lucky bugger has got my copies. So we've got these hybrid cards of some of the profiles for the Griffins and the Scorpion factions in here as well, which is excellent, which will be perfect for our setup as we are playing hybrid, and we're halfway through the initial missions at the moment from the core game. So these are coming very handy, especially the Dawn Warrior card, because Paul has those, so if you can incorporate those in his list. And the Daciatis clone as well, so we need to procure one of those at some point because he looks like a nasty bugger in the hybrid laboratories for me to face or for me to use at some point, and another classic design as well. And they have some spells and miracle cards in here as well that are used for, I believe, Confrontation 2. So I don't know for what factions or whatever. I suppose it's just whatever adept or whatever magician faithful that can use and access those. And also had these Nexus cards, which looks that they are for terrain features in your games of Confrontation that have some effect, or that maybe like a central objective on the tabletop that have some kind of area effect, or that you have to destroy and have certain abilities or what have you, which are covered in the booklet that we'll go through in just a moment. So this is the extra supplement that came with the magazine, as if the magazine wasn't cool enough. It has this some extra missions for hybrid, for Project HYB 58, and it has, I believe, 3 missions. So that's really excellent. So that's going to supplement our games of hybrid and extend our enjoyment of the fun we're having with the board game at the moment, me and Paul. So that's going to be excellent, and it maybe incorporates those 2 profiles that we had, 2 or 3 profiles that we've seen on the cards as well in some formal shape. There's also a scenario between the Drunes and the Celts in this one, with some 2D terrain that you could photocopy and cut out, or cut out of your issue. I wouldn't suggest to do that, probably just a color photocopy onto card and then cut out and use in your games. And it talks about the Nexus, a place of power, so how we can implement these particular features in our games, which is excellent. So THM Miniatures comes to mind, which is a terrain company out of Canada, which supply all these beautiful terrain pieces that I use in my games of Confrontation. I think a few of those that Thierry make would be perfect for that. And of course it's got some other articles dealing with Ragnarok and how to implement certain tactics and how to use your strategic deck for that as well. Assaulting the Scenery, another great look at terrain and how it should be used in your games, as we have not used terrain at all in our games at all of Confrontation. I would like to use that more and utilize terrain as being a specific and important feature on the tabletop, not just to look pretty. They've got a great look at an article looking at the Fortresses of Danical, which is also a detailed story in the first issue of Cry Havoc, and it's actually a really nice story too. I really enjoy that, between Serid and Sethin, and 2 great characters. So let's have a look at the main issue now. So I'm going to flip through this. So presented with really high production values, of course. I mean, this is unprecedented for any other kind of game magazine of its time. And I think me and Paul remarked yesterday the costs that would have been involved in producing this magazine would have been just extraordinary. So we're just really lucky that something like this ever came about and materialized in our hands, and we could take this home, and it sort of really engrossed you in the potential of what they were doing at this time. in terms of like casting models, model production, painting, and graphic design. If you compare this to some other magazines of that age, they were just sort of light years ahead in terms of production values. So they were really at the cutting edge in terms of hobby magazines at this stage. And if this wasn't going to get you into the world of Confrontation, I don't know what will. Now we come to a very important part of the book for me, was how they painted these miniatures in this non-metallic metal style, and how they made the terrain and everything like that. So I found these really interesting as a hobbyist that enjoyed painting more than playing the games of Confrontation. So yeah, this gave me a great insight as to how they were doing this, and boy oh boy, that plaster or Paris is one of the most messiest, dirtiest, filthiest materials you could ever think of using, but it makes the most beautiful looking terrain elements, if anything else. And also how to assemble these multi-part miniatures they were using for Ragnarok, as that was their sort of main brand at the time. And they gave this excellent overview of not only these wonderful pictures of the game being played, but a sort of a guide as to how to play Ragnarok, and turn by turn. So it gave a great insight as to the mechanics of the game. It looks really interesting. I really look forward to playing it at some point in the future, and we're already making plans now of getting some terrain together, and some from THM Miniatures, from Thierry and his excellent company, that make a selection of terrain elements for the Sahara kind of setting for the Scorpion faction, and getting a mat from maybe Deep Cut Studios or something like that, so that we can sort of recreate a far less messier plaster made terrain board. Even though they look absolutely beautiful, I think some modern companies are making some wonderful alternatives out there to make your battlefields look just as cool as the ones featured in the Cry Havoc magazines and in the studio. Now, as my lore master Eric from Canada would tell me, a lot of the lore that you would find about the game would be contained within the Cry Havoc magazine. So if you're interested in the lore of Confrontation, then Cry Havoc is probably the first place you should be looking at, as to the characters, the main characters in the world, and the origins of them, and where their place is within the world of Arclash. Yeah, so Cry Havoc was an instrumental piece of literature that gave you some sort of deeper insights into the armies and why they're fighting each other, and the politics maybe behind how their existence in the world, and the things that they couldn't, well, they only gave you snippets of maybe on the cards, and not much information elsewhere at the time. Of course, knowing me, I'm just interested in pretty pictures and wonderful artwork, and that's what inspires me the most. So yeah, in the back of this it has a gallery section looking at certain geographical kind of illustrations of the fortresses and the characters, and maybe some previews of some upcoming materials. So I hope you enjoyed this first issue flip through of the Cry Havoc magazine, issue 1. And I look forward to presenting issues 3 and 5 in the very near future. So until then, please like, subscribe and share the videos to help grow the Confrontation community. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.